Okay, I think that's finally on. Hi all. So it's a little bit early here as I'm starting today. I figured I'd get an early start for any who are joining or watching. So if anyone wants to get out for their afternoon stroll at lunch or whatnot, the sun has finally peeked out. Um, Today I wanted to talk just for a few minutes about tax credits and answer some questions that have come up over the last few weeks, and then just kind of give a couple reminders about the tax credits. So as we all are painfully aware, summer has ended and construction season is starting to wind its way down. So there were a lot of construction projects that were happening. I know almost everyone had a COVID construction list of things they noticed while they were working at home. And we were encouraging everyone to use the tax credits if possible, because there's a wonderful 20% homeowner tax credit. Through New York State. And then as people were looking at whether it's investment properties or whatnot, there's a very similar program for investment properties, which is a 20% state, 20% federal, so a total of 40% tax credit that we had been talking about a bit. So as you're wrapping things up, if you've already started the applications, I wanted to remind everyone to start getting your part threes together. It helps the State Historic Preservation Office if they are completed in December. We all know the holidays get pretty busy. So I think the earlier that can get submitted, the better. So for part threes, you want to make sure you have all of your receipts and things. That's when the actual costs come in. If anyone has no idea what I'm talking about with a part three, we have a series of videos that we did as a part of our restoration fair that was virtual on our restoration fair Facebook page or group with Fran Stern up at SHPO. And she did a great walkthrough for us using a couple properties to look at the application itself. So the 20% homeowner credit is kind of what I'm going to focus on a little bit more at the moment. And that's what we focused on for the restoration fair as well. So Fran walked us through the application. There's three parts. Part one is basically, certifying, yes, it's a historic building, it's in a historic district. Part two is the real meat and potatoes with what are you doing to your building. It's a great, neat little form where you can just kind of fill everything in. So, your front facade, you're repairing your stoop. What's the existing stoop? It's a brownstone stoop and the layers are falling off. The historic railing is still there. What are you going to do to it? You're going to remove what's falling off and parge the top or just retool it. You're going to reseat the railing in new lead or whatever. All of that's in your part two with corresponding photos. So what I want to talk a little bit more about today is the part three, which is after you've done the work and everything's been approved by SHPO. So we have also video about that too on the restoration fair page. So I just want to remind everyone that those deadlines are coming up. If you want that to be on your tax return next year, you should be starting to get those in. But again, by December is great. Doesn't have to be December 1st. They don't have a hard and fast deadline this year, but the earlier you can get it in, obviously, the better, because they're definitely going to have a big rush in December to get all of that done. The other thing I want to remind everyone, because it is the topic of the month, windows, obviously it's getting a little bit cooler out, so everyone's feeling draft a little bit more. Window repair, if you must, replacement, storm windows, interior, exterior, that all qualifies for the tax credit. So if you're looking to do work on your windows, unfortunately, it very often does hit that $5,000 threshold for the tax credits, but that absolutely qualifies and it is not too late. So if you are looking at repairing your windows, putting new storms on, tightening up your storms, all of those things, as I know a lot of you are from the whole rush of emails and phone calls I've gotten over the last few weeks about, can I replace my windows in a historic district? How do I replace them? How can I repair them? What contractors can I find? Which we can answer all those questions as well if people have them. So too, if people have questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. I can see them on both Facebook, and we do have a few people joining us via Zoom today, so hello to you. Feel free, you can put the questions in the Q&A section. And then if you do have questions, we can put them in the comment section on Facebook. There's a few second delay, but I can hold off at the moment and ramble for a second, and you can post your questions before we sign off. So don't forget, with windows, you can absolutely do the tax credits on them. I will say though, just to remember, if you are in a local historic district, just because you may be applying for tax credits does not mean you have a certificate of appropriateness to replace your windows. They are two separate processes. So if you're in a local historic district to do any work to your windows, whether it's repair, replacement, the installation of exterior storms, that goes through the Historic Resources Commission. So a tax credit application does not mean you have a permit for that work. That's something that's come up a lot lately. But yeah, so as you're putting all those numbers together and looking at how much all of it costs to do all of this work, especially too, if you also did a, pardon me, my allergies are exploding. So if I'm drippy or I'm coughing, my enjoying the allergies through video today. Um, but yeah, so if you also do that at-home energy assessment, that's another thing a lot of people are looking at too, with whether or not they should insulate or how do you kind of button up your home for winter. All of those activities, including if you happen to need a new furnace or a boiler or whatever, all of those are tax credit eligible expenses as well. I love the example they use that if you take your house and upside down and you shake it, if it doesn't fall out, it applies for the tax credit. So all of your heating systems, if you're having your radiators repaired, um, if you know anything like that, anything heat related, repairs to the exterior, even small things like caulking, all of that certainly qualifies, but you just have to make sure you hit that $5,000 threshold, which I think as historic property owners we all know is painfully easy to do. um, so that's my public service announcement about tax credits. Some of the questions that I have been getting, I figured we'd do maybe a little bit of a Q&A, since we have been getting so many questions. And a lot of people have been asking about stoop repair or replacement. We've seen a lot of stoops come in that are not, I don't say they're not original to the building. They're not. The stoops have been replaced. They're either concrete or they're brick, but they're in a local historic district. And obviously, in the 1860s, 40s, 70s, they wouldn't have been a brick or a concrete stoop. So the question is, were a lot of those tax credit eligible, whether repairs or if you replace in kind, which is what the local historic district is looking for too. They would look for replacing in kind. So if you already have a concrete stoop or a masonry stoop, you would be able to repair or replace with masonry. And that would be a tax credit eligible expense. So yes, even if you have a brick stoop and it is not an original stoop to the house, but obviously your house had a stoop because there had to be a way to get into the front door. Yes, repairs and all that on that definitely qualifies for the tax credits. Again, make sure you don't do any work before you get approval from the state. So you want lots and lots of photos. Make sure you get holistic photos of whether it's the whole facade or the whole entryway if you're doing your stoop, and then details of all the issues and things. So if you've got, brownstone spalling off and you've got layers that are starting to pop off in bits, make sure you get some really good photographs of those layers popping off, or the mortar missing if you've got brickwork, or if you have a concrete stoop, obviously where the chunks have fallen off, and any rebar chunks of aggregate are highly visible, and obviously areas for deterioration to happen because water's just going to get in those little gaps that explode them over the winter. Love the freeze the hop here. So yes, all of that is absolutely eligible. And that's, a lot of people have been very concerned about that. If it's not an original component, even though there was one there, if it's not, is it eligible? Yes, it typically is. We have had a couple questions about people looking to change their stoops or facades, whether they're looking to kind of orient their stoop the other way, or if they're looking to take a bank of windows and make it a bay window. Those kind of changes are a little bit not questionable. Some of it's doable, but it's something I would definitely not do without prior approval. And you would definitely want to work with SHPO on that. But also, if you're in, again, a local historic district, you're definitely going to want to check with the Historic Resources Commission first to make sure that all of those things are okay, because typically changing the layout of a stoop, especially if there's no photographic evidence or anything that suggests it looked like that beforehand, they're typically not going to go for it, just because it does change the character of the building. And same thing, changing a bank of windows to a bay, which projects, or like an oriole or something like that, definitely changes the character of the building. So while it's definitely not a no, you can't do it, there are definitely sensitive approaches to it that don't really fully alter the character of the building. So those are things that would definitely need to be checked on before you decide to just go and do it. All right, I don't see too many questions coming in. If I haven't seen any yet and you've posted one, I'm sorry, there's just a delay on Facebook. If you do end up with questions and you're watching this after the fact, 'cause I know a lot of you do as you come home either on your Tuesday night or, because obviously there's nothing else to do on a Friday evening, right? Um, Please feel free, post your questions in the comment section of the video, and I can certainly answer them there. Or if you want to email me, my email is cmacri@historic-albany.org. And I'm more than happy to talk tax credits or any other repairs or anything like that. So if that's helpful as you guys are finishing up your projects for the fall, getting ready for winter, happy to answer any tax credit questions you have or questions about what shouldn't be done, things like that. All but happy to answer. So I think that's the majority of what I wanted to talk about. I don't see any questions on Zoom. I don't see any on Facebook, but again, I'm sure some will pop up later that I can definitely answer later. Please don't hesitate if you do have questions to reach out. There are also a lot of great resources on the Restoration Fair page. Should you be looking at either tax credits, we had one of our speakers was from Affordable Housing Partnership, Kathleen Blankton, who talked about their energy program with energy audits. And then they offer, there's different grants out there for implementing the things that these energy audits have identified as needs, whether it's, again, sealing up the envelope with caulking or so an old furnace that's very outdated and inefficient, replacing that. Insulation is usually a big one. So there are grants and things like that available, and a lot of that information is on the Restoration Fair page. And then before I leave you all to go on your walk on your beautiful Tuesday, please get out before it becomes cloudy again. I know there's a tiny patch of sun here in Troy, so I plan to take my 2-year-old out for our quick constitutional before she takes her nap. But I want to put in a quick plug for our Docomomo self-guided tour this weekend. I know I haven't done as many architectural history technical Tuesdays lately. We'll be getting back into that a little bit, but we are doing a kind of, I don't want to say brief, but we're doing a little kind of self-guided tour highlighting some of the mid-century modern architecture in Albany. And actually there's like going to be a small cluster in Slingerlands. The buildings aren't open to the public, but we certainly encourage you to drive out, take a look at them. You can definitely look at the exterior. Some of them are definitely buildings that you'd be able to look at. Some are personal residences, so don't get too close and personal. But it should be a nice weekend. Hopefully we'll avoid the rain. So if you want to get out and take a look at some great mid-century modern architecture, we'll be posting the guide at the end of the week, I think Friday or Saturday, maybe in our newsletter. So keep an eye out for that if you're looking for something to do this weekend. Enjoy some of our mid-century modern architecture. And with that, I'll leave you for the rest of the week. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful Tuesday.